I don't know what I just saw, but I loved it. You know, I was really tempted just to come straight home after watching this and just review it straight up without even letting myself settle. But I decided to relax a little bit, take the night, sleep on it, wait a couple hours, and then review it. I still think I should probably see it again, but I'm going to just go for it. MIDSOMMAR is directed by Ari Aster. Ooh. MIDSOMMAR is directed by Ari Aster, following up Hereditary, which I personally loved, a lot of people hated, and a lot of people will do the same thing with this. It's gonna be divisive as hell, and I thought that movie was divisive, but that was nothing. Like, this movie is gonna tear apart audiences. Let's just say, before we even get into my review, if you didn't like Hereditary, you probably won't like this movie. This movie is metaphorical, it is very thought-provoking, it has a lot of deep themes, and a lot of interesting things, even though it's a very simple story. It's about Danny, and after a tragedy happens to her, she goes to Sweden with her boyfriend and his friends to visit one of his friends' family, which turns out to be a cult to celebrate the Midsummer festivals. And shit happens. Things get trippy. Shrooms, flowers, bears, sex, and all that weird shit. Not that all that stuff's weird or anything, but it's about a toxic relationship, but not the toxic you usually associate with the word toxic. It's more of a relationship that's not really benefiting either group. They don't really want to end it, but they don't want to stay together either. And so it's just not benefiting them. They could be happier without each other, but they're just living in this little thing. And Danny's character is coming off a personal tragedy, and she has a hard time dealing with that. She doesn't really have the emotional support from her boyfriend that she needs. She's very self-conscious. She doesn't want to ruin anything. She's always apologizing for things she never really needs to apologize. And his character is just kind of there. He loves her, but it's just too much. You know, her mental illness and all this is it's weighing on his shoulders, and he can't really take it, but he doesn't end it, and he doesn't want to end it. And that's what this film kind of centers around as they go to this murderous cult, which they don't really know. And a lot of people are going to hate this movie because nothing really happens until about an hour in. You don't really get that cult murder status until about an hour, yeah, and it's pretty graphic too as well once you get there. It slowly builds to the horrific elements of a horror movie. And when it even gets there, I don't feel like it's even that horrific necessarily. A lot of people will think this is not scary. They'll just be like, what the f-? Like, why? What was the point? Which, I didn't see that. I've listened to reviews. I've listened to Chris Stuckman. I've listened to Mark Commode. They both had very different ideas. Chris Stuckman said it was very like the story wasn't there as well. The themes were, and a lot of the symbolism was there, but I disagree. There is a very big part in the movie that happens about the 10-minute mark. It seems like it's a big setup point for the story going forward, and it doesn't really get touched on later on. With no spoilers or anything, but it doesn't really get to that point. It doesn't seem like it's paid off. And a lot of people think that this just doesn't matter, and I've heard a lot of opinions on that, and I just don't really agree. I do to a sense, like I get what they're saying, but I think on a metaphorical level and within symbolism, it has a lot of things going forward, and I think that's great. I love when movies do this. I love Ari Aster. I freaking love the guy. Like, as soon as I saw Hereditary, I knew he was so good. Like, say what you will about Hereditary. I think it's a masterpiece of horror. It scared me. There's very few movies that scare me. Hereditary was one, The Shining another. The Shining, I think, is a better movie than Hereditary. But Hereditary seems like it's just so maniacal and it's so slowly paced, and it's just like it seems like every camera movement is just perfectly placed. There's nothing like it's just so planned out that I fucking love it. I don't know. Okay? So what I think about The Shining, and I don't know if The Shining is necessarily an inspiration to Ari Aster, but I think he takes a lot from Stanley Kubrick's filmmaking in that. It seems like every camera movement has a point to the story. Like it's telling its own story as well. You know, you have your story from the script, but the screenplay itself is giving its own story within the movements of the camera and the editing. And I think those are great. It feels like this camera just has a mind of its own, and it's just taking us through this journey of... I've never been high or anything, but I want to say that this is as close to a trip as I've probably ever have felt. I'm not ashamed of that or anything, but I don't know. I love this movie. I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. Like, I just loved it. And it's like, there's clear inspiration from The Wicker Man, The Shining, and I know that there's a movie called MIDSOMMAR that seems like it has a lot of same plot points. I haven't seen it. So this is just my opinion on this film. I'm not judging anything else. I'm not saying anybody ripped off from anybody else. But my thoughts on MIDSOMMAR was I loved it. I don't think everyone's going to love it. There are some parts where it's funny. It doesn't make sense. Like, you're laughing, and it got under my skin, and I felt weird about it. I was glued to the screen. I couldn't get bored in this movie. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It just felt like it was going on. It felt like a long movie, but I liked that it was that long. I wanted it to go 2:45. I wanted to see what was going to happen, and I don't really have great reasons to love it other than it's just so unique to me, and I haven't seen really anything like it. It was weird as hell. I love Norse mythology, so that might have played a little bit into it as well. And if you know anything about Norse mythology or runes or customs or sacrifices and stuff like that, like if that stuff interests you, like it interests me, I think you'll like this movie. It's super interesting. That in itself, it feels like it's a little bit of a historic piece. And I know this is based off of some murders that happened, some cult murders that happened there. It's not the exact story, it's just elements of that story. But then again, like I said, I love this movie. I think it's great. I think that you need to go check it out. I think that you'll probably hate it. So actually, I don't know if I can recommend it, but if you like weird shit and you like freaking movies that are just completely original, maybe this one's not original, but it felt original. If you like that, if you want to see something weird, if you're bored of superhero movies, if you're bored of just your boring action movies like freaking Anna or Spider-Man Homecoming, my review's coming out on that. I like that movie a lot. But this movie is a change of pace. It makes you feel weird in lots of ways. And I think basically what's going to happen is either that you loved it like me or you're going to be asking for your money back. And if I had to describe this movie in one word, it is trippy as hell. That's my one word. And I stand by it. The fact of the matter is I've listened to a lot of the criticism, and a lot of times I'll start to recognize these faults in movies, and sometimes I do, and I still love it. And there's some times where I hear these faults, like right now, where I hear the faults, but they just don't, like... It's like when somebody criticizes Blade Runner 2049. I just don't see it. And I don't really see it here. I do like Hereditary as more of a movie that's just more conventional in a way. It's just like it has a better story. And it's a lot more layered. This one just seems kind of just like an art piece. And I appreciate that so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Of course, I don't think it's like a masterpiece or anything, because there are things that I didn't like. But at the end of the day, I thoroughly enjoyed myself in this theater. I loved it. I was happy that I was watching it. I didn't want it to end, and I didn't really want to leave the theater. I stayed speechless throughout the whole entire credits, which I don't usually do. You guys might tear me apart on that. But I loved it. Midsommar, I think, is a glowing, beautiful... Oh, cinematography. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Anyways, Midsommar, I loved. Again, everyone's probably going to hate it, but I think I can recommend it. If you liked Hereditary, then go see it. I think you'll like it. You might still hate it, but if you didn't like Hereditary at all, I would stay away. And if you like more metaphorical pieces, more artsy kind of films, then I think you're safe to go buy a ticket. Thank you for watching. You can check me out on Oakley B Cinema on Instagram, where I post a movie of the day every day. I've been doing a movie of the day for each year of film, and I'm going to go until I can't go anymore on that. I'm up to I think 25 or 26, and I would appreciate it if you check that out. You can also check out my other YouTube channel, Third Winter-ish, where me and my buddies have been reviewing Game of Thrones. We're on our Tarantino series. We're also going to do some DIY filmmaking videos as well, so you can check that out. I'd really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe down below. You can also check out my Rocketman review right down there, and I'll put my link into my Spider-Man review up as well. That will probably come out after this, but whatever. If you're watching it right now, you'll see it. And again, thank you so much, and have a good one.